Before the engines fired, before a single lap was run at the Coca-Cola 600, a man walked alone across the infield at Charlotte Motor Speedway. No microphone, no camera crew following him, no coordinator telling him where to stand. He knelt down, placed 8 white flowers on a number painted in the grass, made the sign of the cross, stood back up, and walked away. The entire thing took 40 seconds. In a weekend that produced one of the most elaborate and emotionally charged tribute productions NASCAR has ever assembled, that 40-second moment, quiet, unscripted, and almost accidental in how it was captured, became the image that cut deepest. Not the bagpipes, not the missing man formation, not the ceremony on pit road with the entire garage standing behind a grieving family. The flowers, 8 of them, laid by a brother for a brother on a patch of painted grass in the middle of one of the loudest sports environments in America. The question worth sitting with is not just what happened, it is why it landed the way it did. And to understand that, you need to understand who Kurt Busch is, what he has already lost, and what it cost him to walk out there on Sunday, May 24th, 2026. Kyle Busch died on Thursday, May 21st, 2026. He was 41 years old. The cause, as confirmed by his family, was catastrophic. Severe pneumonia progressed into sepsis, resulting in rapid and overwhelming associated complications. A man who had won a truck race on May 15th, just 6 days before his death, was gone. A 2-time NASCAR Cup Series champion, the sport's all-time winningest driver across his 3 national series with 234 combined victories, was gone. He had been registered to race in the Coca-Cola 600. His seat at Charlotte Motor Speedway became a memorial before the green flag ever dropped. The numbers alone tell you the scale of what NASCAR lost. 63 Cup Series wins, 9th all-time. 102 wins in what is now the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series, the most in that series by any driver in history. 69 wins in the Craftsman Truck Series, again, the most ever. 2 championships in 2015 and 2019. A career that ran 22 full-time seasons in NASCAR's top division. He is the only driver to win at least 1 Cup Series race in 19 consecutive seasons, from 2005 through 2023, and he is the only driver ever to win all 3 races, trucks, the O'Reilly Series, and Cup, in the same weekend. He did it twice, in 2010 and 2017 at Bristol. Kyle Busch leaves behind his wife Samantha, his 11-year-old son Brexton, his 4-year-old daughter Lennox, his parents Tom and Gay Busch, and his older brother, Kurt Busch, himself a NASCAR Hall of Famer and champion. Before the race on Sunday evening, Kurt Busch walked to the center of the infield at Charlotte Motor Speedway. He knelt down. He laid 8 white flowers on the number 8 logo that had been painted into the grass in honor of his younger brother Kyle. He knelt briefly, made the sign of the cross, rose, and then rejoined the family for the pre-race moment of silence. The entire sequence was quiet, personal, and completely unscripted. It was captured on video and has since circulated widely across NASCAR's fan community. The camera caught it because someone was paying attention, not because it was staged for broadcast. That distinction matters enormously in how we receive it. There was no coordination with the TV crew, no spot in the rundown, no producer giving Kurt a countdown. He walked out, did what he came to do, and walked back. The number 8 logo had been painted in the infield specifically to honor Kyle. That is the number Richard Childress Racing has now reserved in perpetuity, not for another driver, not for a sponsor, but for Brexton Busch, Kyle's son, when he is ready to race in NASCAR. RCR said it plainly in their statement. Kyle Busch was instrumental in the design of RCR's stylized number 8, and it has become synonymous with Kyle and an important symbol for his fans and the NASCAR industry. No one can carry it forward to the level that he did. The number 8 is reserved and ready for Brexton Busch when he is ready to go NASCAR racing. 8 flowers. The number was not accidental. Kurt and Kyle Busch are the winningest pair of brothers in NASCAR history. Their combined body of work across the Cup, O'Reilly, and Truck Series defines a substantial portion of what American stock car racing looked like for 2 full decades. Kurt was 7 years older. He was the one who set the benchmark. When Kurt was still coming up through the ranks in 2001, he said of his younger brother, "You think I'm a pretty good race car driver? Wait until you see my brother. He's the best driver in the family." He was right, but to understand what Kurt carrying those flowers into the infield actually cost him, you need to understand his last 3 years. In July of 2022, Kurt suffered a significant concussion during a qualifying crash at Pocono. The injury did not heal the way anyone hoped. After months of evaluation and attempting a return, Kurt was forced to step away from full-time competition permanently. He was 44 years old. He had He had 34 Cup wins. He had a championship. And he had to walk away from the sport he built his life around. I said, but not by choice, but because his body would not allow him to continue. That is its own particular kind of grief. The kind that comes from losing something before you feel finished with it. Kurt has been carrying that privately ever since. Outside the competitive environment he spent his entire adult life inside. And now his younger brother, the one who kept racing, who kept winning, who won a truck series race just a week before he died, is gone first. That reversal is not a small thing. Older brothers are not supposed to outlast their younger ones. Kurt had already lost his career. Now he has lost Kyle. The Coca-Cola 600 is not an abstract backdrop for this moment. Kurt won this race in 2010, at this track, and on Sunday he was standing at the infield of Charlotte Motor Speedway placing flowers on his brother's number before a race Kyle was registered to run. That is a weight that does not have a simple name. Look at the gesture itself, every element of it, and the deliberateness becomes clear. 8 flowers, Kyle's number at Richard Childress Racing for his final seasons. The number RCR has reserved for Brexton. The number fans were raising fingers for on lap 8 of the race. Kurt did not bring a round number of flowers. He brought exactly 8. Deliberate, specific, personal. The sign of the cross that followed is a moment of religious sincerity that is impossible to manufacture. It tells you where Kurt's head was, not performing grief for a broadcast, but engaging in it privately in the only way he knew how, in a setting that happened to have cameras present. And then there is the physicality of kneeling. Kurt Busch spent his entire career in a car that demanded control, hands on the wheel, body braced, posture locked. Kneeling is an act of surrender that stands in direct contrast to everything competition asks of a driver. It is a posture of humility and reverence. Coming from a man who spent decades behind a wheel at 200 miles an hour, it lands with particular force. The brothers had their tensions over the years, competing siblings in the same sport, racing the same events, occasionally in direct conflict. None of that was visible on Sunday. What was visible was a man who lost his little brother doing the quietest possible thing with all of it. The rest of the Charlotte weekend was anything but quiet, and it deserves to be acknowledged in full because it was, by any measure, extraordinary. Every car on the grid carried a Kyle Busch decal. The word Rowdy was affixed over the driver's side window on every Cup Series entry. RCR switched the number 8 car to number 33 for the weekend and had Austin Hill fill the seat. The number 8 logo was placed atop the scoring pylon. A seat was left empty during the driver's meeting. Kyle Busch flags flew throughout the grandstands. On pit road before the race, Kyle's wife Samantha and son Brexton stood next to NASCAR CEO Steve O'Donnell as bagpipes rang out Amazing Grace. Surrounded by drivers, team owners, and Richard Childress himself, O'Donnell addressed the family directly. He said every racetrack was Kyle Busch's home. He competed like he had something to prove every single race, when in reality he had already proven everything. He continued, "What I think we'll miss the most isn't the wins. It's the guy who quietly wanted to help a teammate, give some advice, the husband, the father, the guy who quietly did things for others when no one was watching." He closed by speaking directly to the family. "Samantha, I want you to know that this sport stands with you, and you and your children are NASCAR family for forever. Brexton and Lennox, your dad loves you with all his heart. Everyone gathered here, everyone behind you, everyone watching on TV, and all those people up in that grandstand, they are your family, and we've got you." During the pace laps, NASCAR executed a missing man formation to honor Kyle. On lap 8, fans across the grandstand stood and raised 8 fingers as the cars flew by. Daniel Suarez, Kyle Busch, Motorsports alum, won the race when it was cut 27 laps short due to rain, and he waved a Rowdy Nation flag in victory lane. Bubba Wallace knelt over the number 8 painted in the infield. And the 8 white flowers that Kurt had laid before the race? Every flower that Kurt Busch laid out survived over 500 miles of racing and the post-race jet dryers. They were still there, right where he put them. The pre-race ceremony with O'Donnell was planned, scripted, and executed with institutional precision. It was moving and it was right. But it was a production. The sport doing what the sport does when it needs to mark something significant for a large audience. Kurt's flowers were none of that. They were a brother doing something for a brother on the infield grass in the middle of one of the loudest sports environments in America, and somehow making it feel completely isolated from all of it. The video of Kurt laying the flowers down has spread faster than almost any other single image from the Charlotte weekend, and the response to it has been remarkably consistent across a fan base that rarely agrees on anything. The comments are not about racing. They are not about championships or wins or what either Busch brother accomplished on a track. They are about a man kneeling in a field and doing something that any sibling who has ever loved another sibling immediately understands. That universality is the reason it landed so hard. You do not need to know NASCAR to feel what Kurt Busch communicated in those 40 seconds. You just need to have someone in your life that you love. Media coverage largely let the image speak for itself, which is the correct instinct. Overlaying too much analysis on a moment this personal would diminish it. The most common editorial choice has been to run the video with minimal framing and allow viewers to arrive at their own response. It works because the moment does not need help. Inside the NASCAR community specifically, Kurt's gesture has been received as a reminder of what the Busch name actually represents. Not just a competitive brand, not just a statistical legacy, but a family that gave this sport two of its most significant careers and now carries an irreplaceable loss. What comes next for Kurt Busch is genuinely uncertain, and both possible paths carry real weight. In one direction, Kurt becomes a sustained presence in NASCAR's ongoing effort to honor Kyle's legacy, a voice, a mentor, a visible connection between the Busch family and the broader community. He is part of the Hall of Fame induction when it comes. He stands in the room where his brother's name is permanently enshrined. Braxton grows up with his uncle as a guide, and the Busch name's future in NASCAR runs through both of them. In the other direction, the grief becomes too heavy to carry publicly. The loss of Kyle, compounding the loss Kurt has already been carrying since his own forced retirement in 2022, becomes something he processes entirely away from the sport. The family's presence at events becomes rare and then absent. The flowers at Charlotte become the last significant public gesture, a perfect moment that existed once and did not repeat. The sport loses the Busch name from active life faster than anyone expected, and the void left by Kyle's absence becomes wider than it would have been if Kurt had been able to stay close to it. Neither outcome is certain. Both are real possibilities, and the weight of which direction Kurt goes belongs entirely to him. 8 white flowers, a number painted in the grass, a brother kneeling alone on one of the most watched sports stages in America, and somehow making it feel like the most private thing in the world. Kurt Busch did not need a speech to say what needed saying on Sunday, May 24th, 2026. He said it with his hands and his knees, in a few seconds of silence, in the middle of all that noise. In a weekend full of tributes, the decals, the formation laps, the broadcast silence, the ceremony, was Kurt's moment in the infield the one that hit hardest for you? Or was there something else from Charlotte this weekend that stayed with you longer? Tell me in the comments below, and subscribe if you want to be here as this story continues to unfold. NASCAR is not done processing this loss, and neither are we,